Hello, I'm Beverly Siegel, your host today on The Better Part. During these tight economic times, many people are seeking ways to vacation while still keeping to budgetary constraints. This may mean traveling closer to home. Northern California has so many wonderful destinations within easy driving distance of the Bay Area. Stay tuned to hear about the less expensive choices you have for your next trip.
Welcome to The Better Part, a program that encompasses a diverse spectrum of topics important to our community, which we hope will both inform and entertain you. We invite you to sit back and enjoy the program.
Our guest today is Laura Del Rosso. Laura grew up in Pacifica, California, in a house that once was part of an artichoke farm. She's traveled all over the world, but now lives in San Francisco, where she was bureau chief of Travel Weekly for 16 years. She has also written for a variety of other newspapers and magazines. Her articles have been published in the San Francisco Chronicle and the Boston Herald, among others. Laura contributed chapters to editions of Photo San Francisco, and she recently published a book, Great Escapes of Northern California. Laura loves to travel, especially to hike and explore California's back roads, and to try new places to eat. Welcome, Laura, to The Better Part.
Thank you for having me.
Tell us a little bit about Pacifica, your birthplace, which can also be a travel destination.
Yes, a lot of people don't think of Pacifica as a travel destination, but it can be. It's a nice little day trip. Of course, it's known for its beaches, and there are some really great beaches there, and as well as a big pier that makes a nice walk out there. Lately, it's become known as a barbecue place. There's a famous place called Gorilla that's been on the Food Network, and people drive to Pacifica just to have barbecue these days.
Wow.
Yeah.
How did you become interested in travel writing as a career?
Well, I'm a local person. I went to San Jose State. I have a journalism degree from state here. And I was a newspaper reporter right in this area. And then I was at Travel Weekly, which is a travel industry magazine, for a long time, and started doing books and magazine articles about travel a few years ago. Still doing Travel Weekly, which is pretty much geared towards the travel industry and travel agents.
You told me that a recent project in San Francisco is a walking tour of the ferry building and the Embarcadero. Tell us a little about that.
Well, I've expanded into cell phone tours because this is the latest and greatest way to travel. People are downloading travel information on their iPhones and their iPod Touches and other phones that they have. So there are a lot of new companies out there that are developing travel products for phones. So I've done an Apple application called an app specifically about Chinatown, and now I'm working on other neighborhoods of San Francisco. So if you go to the iTunes, which is the store where you can buy different apps and songs and music, you can find all kinds of travel guides to San Francisco and other parts of the world that you can download. And as you're walking around the city, these are geo-coded is the word they're using now. So that as you're walking around, it will give you the map and a walking guide to Chinatown. And then I've got North Beach and Fisherman's Wharf coming up in about a month. So these are new kinds of tours, new kinds of travel writing that's out there right now.
So does this work like those audio tours that you sometimes find in museums? Yes.
On the apps, there's no audio part. Although I do have a different kind of tour, it's through visualtraveltours.com, that is an audio and it's a narrated walking tour. And that's also downloadable on an iPhone. The actual iPhone app is more, does not have audio. That one you read and you look at, and there are a lot of really great pictures. There's about 150 photos that you kind of flip through. And so it's great because you can plan your trip ahead of time before you hit the destination. And then when you're at the destination, you use the app as you're walking around. And there's restaurants, places to see, little kind of hidden gems. In Chinatown, I've got some of the alleyways, places where people play mahjong in small alleyways where you can hear the click-clacketing of the mahjong tiles as you're walking through old, narrow alleyways.
Wow, more and more of our lives seems to be centered around our phones.
Yes.
What are the other must-see sites in San Francisco? And what are your favorite places there?
Well, you know, last year the Walt Disney Museum opened in the Presidio, and this is a little known, hasn't gotten a lot of recognition, I think. This is the family of Walt Disney. His daughter lives in the Bay Area, and they spent about $110 million renovating one of the old barracks in the Presidio, and they've turned it into a museum dedicated to the life of Walt Disney. And this is a fantastic place. It's not really geared to small children so much as adults, and specifically to adults that grew up watching Walt Disney movies and going to Disneyland. And at the end, it takes a good 2 or 3 hours to go through the museum, a lot of interactive exhibits, and at the end you are plopped down in front of Walt's original model for Disneyland. And it's a huge model that takes up a big room, and you can kind of walk around and see how he envisioned Disneyland. And this makes a great day in San Francisco because it's in the middle of the Presidio. It's just a few hundred yards from Crissy Field, which is a nice walk, and there are new restaurants in the Marina District, and it makes for a really great day trip.
That's great. I'll have to go there myself. I didn't even know that existed.
It opened in October, so it's a relatively new museum that hasn't gotten a lot of publicity.
Okay, well, now we're going north from San Francisco, and about a 4-hour drive takes you to Mendocino, a lovely town that overlooks the Pacific coast. I visited there when I first came out to California and saw beautiful gardens there. And what else is there to see and do there?
Well, this is the place in California that people from the East Coast like you often say it reminds them of the East Coast because it looks a lot like a village in New England. And as you may know, a lot of films were made there, TV shows. The Angela Lansbury show about the detective that was on for years was filmed there. It was supposed to be New England, but it was in fact Mendocino. And there's just a lot to do there. And one of the latest things that has opened up, is the Point Cabrillo Light Station. Now, this is an old lighthouse that's north of Mendocino, only about 2 miles. And they've renovated it, and it's just beautiful. And you can see how the families used to live in this totally windswept, cold, foggy place that, you know, gets some nice sunshine sometimes, but it's pretty bleak. And you can walk through their house, and you can stay there now. It's been turned into a bed and breakfast.
Oh, wow.
This is Point Cabrillo, and you can actually spend the night in the old lighthouse family's quarters. And it's very lovely. It's very Victorian. It's very romantic because you can hear the foghorns outside and take walks on the bluffs. It's very nice.
I have visited lighthouses, but never one that you could actually stay in.
Yeah, it's one of those new ones.
That's really great.
Yeah.
You were talking before about beaches in Pacifica. Tell us a little bit about the Point Reyes National Seashore, which is supposed to have some wonderful beaches.
Yeah, well, as you probably know, this is one of the first national seashores in the United States, and it's beautiful because it's very primitive. There isn't a whole lot out at Point Reyes, and they've really done a great job of preserving it. There is one kind of hint of civilization, though, and it's a lovely place to go, and it's at Drake's Beach, which is one of the big, long, beautiful white sand beaches out at Point Reyes. Now, at Drake's Beach, there's a concession stand. This was an old hot dog hamburger concession stand that the Park Service has now given to a young couple who've decided to turn it into a very fine restaurant. This is a long drive. It takes about 45 minutes from park headquarters to drive all the way out in the peninsula to Drake's Beach in the middle of a national park. On Friday and Saturday nights, they do a fixed price menu, and it's all local food. It's vegetables grown locally in Marin County, and even the meat that's local. Everything's in season, everything's organic, and you eat overlooking this beautiful beach in the middle of nowhere, and you're eating this wonderful food. So that's one thing I recommend if you have a weekend and you're out in Point Reyes. And now during the day they also serve wonderful lunches there. It's not as elegant, but it's very nice. And it's a great place for strolling and just wandering and just taking in the scenery. It's a great place.
Sounds like a wonderful, inexpensive getaway.
Yeah, and you can easily do it on a day trip. And a lot of my suggestions are easily done just taking off in the morning and you're back in the evening, so you're not spending a whole lot of money.
Great for current budgets.
Yes.
Another really popular touring destination is the vineyards and wineries of Napa and Sonoma. That's another place that I visited as soon as I came out to California. Tell us the best way to see that area while still remaining sober. We went to a lot of wine tastings.
Yeah. Well, the important thing is to pace yourself, you know. A lot of the wineries now in Napa and Sonoma are charging, so that's kind of put a damper on things.
Yeah, that's true. It was all free the first time
yeah,
I went there.
Yeah, it can be, $15 now to do wine tasting. So that seems to have put a little bit of a control on people's wine tasting. But it's still very popular. People love going up for the day. I guess the secret is to have a designated driver and have somebody who's not drinking maybe do the driving if you're planning to do a lot of stops and a lot of drinking. But I'm finding that most of my friends now are going up and focusing on the scenery and the food and just enjoying being together. And maybe the wine tasting is sort of secondary to what they're doing up there. Of course, hundreds of wineries. It's very difficult to choose which ones you want to go to. And all of the big wineries, the Beringer and the Mondavis, they all have fantastic tours. But it's nice to get away to some of the smaller wineries where you get a little bit more personal attention. Some of those big wineries, they're just swamped, especially on the weekends. And I guess my main suggestion would be try to avoid Saturdays and Sundays in the summertime in the wine country. It's really not a pleasant experience because you're going to get a lot of people from other states who have never been before. They're driving very slow, and the Highway 29 in Napa is clogged during those times, and it's not very pleasant. So if you can go in the off season, and especially if you can go during the weekday, you'll have a much better experience. And in my book, I've got several suggestions for small wineries in both the counties of Napa and Sonoma, where you get a little bit more personal attention.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
The first time that I went there, we had dinner on something called the wine train.
Uh-huh.
Do you think that's a good idea for visitors?
I do. I think the wine train is wonderful. I think it's a great introduction, especially. And you would avoid the traffic on Highway 29 by doing the wine train.
Mm-hmm. Right. You don't have to drive.
You don't have to drive.
Just eat and drink.
It's a great introduction to Napa Valley, the wine train.
One trip that's popular with families with young children is the California Gold Country. Both of my grandchildren actually went on school trips to the California Gold Country. What do families do there?
This is one of my favorite places, is the whole Highway 49 and all the little old gold rush towns up there. There's so much to do. There's a lot. One of the things that kids like is because it's almost like visiting Disneyland, or the gold mine tours. These are some old mines up there. There's one in Sutter Creek, the old Sutter gold mine, where you actually get in little cars and they take you down into the gold mine. They show you how the miners worked, and actually how some of them still work, because this is a working gold mine. And they have the miners giving the tours. So
do they wear these little
yes
searchlights?
They do. In fact, everybody puts a hard hat on for this tour. So kids love it. It's really wonderful. And adults love it too, because it's fascinating to hear about the life of the miners in the old days, how incredibly dangerous and how grim their lives were, and how it's changed over the years, and how it's safe now. You know, they say that there's millions and millions of dollars of gold still remaining in those hills. Yes, and when you go under there, they'll tell you about that. And a lot of the mines, now that the price of gold has gone up, are thinking about reopening. And so you'll actually go into a mine that's a working mine that at any minute could be reopened to start excavating. Other places in the gold country are little towns like Volcano, Plymouth, Sutter Creek. These are all in Amador County, which makes a great little day trip. You could leave here in Silicon Valley at 8 a.m. You could spend a whole day up there and be back home, you know, after dinner and really have a great time.
One thing we definitely do not want to forget is our most beautiful and famous national park in Northern California, Yosemite National Park and the Yosemite Valley. Tell us about the things to do and see there in the different seasons of the year.
Well, again, I'm a big proponent of off-season travel and avoiding crowds. And, you know, summertime is the peak for Yosemite. And there are a lot of really wonderful things to do in the off-season. And you also get some really good prices. In the wintertime, it's actually possible to book a room at the Ahwahnee, which is almost impossible to do without a lot of planning for the summertime. And the Ahwahnee has a beautiful, famous dining room, of course, and it's easier to get in for lunch and dinner in the off-season. If you do have to go in the summer, make sure you plan way ahead of time, because a lot of the hotels there, the Yosemite Lodge, which is one of my favorite places to stay there, often gets booked up.
That's where I stayed the first time I went there,
I think the Yosemite Lodge is wonderful, and the dining room there
it's a
has
little more rustic
very
than
good
the
food.
Ahwahnee.
Yeah, I always suggest maybe staying there and going over to the Ahwahnee for a cocktail.
That's exactly what we did. It was really great.
It's great in the summertime to sit out and have a cocktail out on the deck as the sun is going down, and you see the alpine glow and look up at Glacier Point, and it's really a wonderful place year-round. It's just I just like it in the spring and the fall.
What about the other famous things to do in Yosemite, like Half Dome?
Well, Half Dome is a big adventure these days. They're restricting the number of people that can go to the top. So that's planning way ahead of time. Glacier Point, that's they've just renovated the visitor center up there, and it's beautiful. It's always one of people's favorite memories of visiting Yosemite is going up to Glacier Point and looking down. You know, those tours that they do are beautiful, and one of the first stops you should make is at the visitor center when you go to Yosemite, and see what's scheduled for that day and see what kind of ranger talks they have and hikes, and they've got a lot of complimentary tours that you can take.
Of course, we don't want to forget going south from San Francisco. How about spending a weekend or a week seeing Carmel, Monterey, Big Sur, the wonderful aquarium in Monterey, the famous Hearst Castle?
Yeah. These are all places that are so easily accessible to us. I mean, we really are lucky living where we live, because there is just such an abundance of choices and things to do. I'm always amazed by the number of people I talk to who have never been to Big Sur, people who have lived in Northern California their whole lives. One of my neighbors, when I was researching the book, told me she had never been, born and raised in the Bay Area. And it's not that far. It really doesn't take that long to get down there. And there are a couple places down there for an overnight that I love. Tree Bones is one of them. It's a yurt hotel where you stay in yurts up on a bluff overlooking the ocean. But they've got a hot tub that you can soak in the hot tub while you're looking at the waves crashing below you. It's a little rustic, but it's not too rustic. They've got a nice restaurant. There are some really, really beautiful places, as everybody knows, down there. It's just we don't seem to get there as often as maybe we should, and really take advantage of where we live.
And the coastline is just so beautiful there.
It's beautiful.
We all know that California is earthquake country. We hear about that all the time, prepare yourself and so on, but it also is volcano country. Tell us a little bit about the Pinnacles National Monument and the Condor Recovery Program that goes on there.
Yeah, the Pinnacles is another one of those places that you really have to think about the season. It's not a place that you would recommend people going in the summer when it's very, very hot there. And springtime, again, is the peak for the Pinnacles. And so you do want to plan for a springtime trip there. And that's when the wildflowers are blooming. You've got poppies everywhere and all kinds of other flowers that are gorgeous. And you can do a lot of those wonderful hikes on those trails that were planned and built during the Great Depression. So you can actually, these are historic trails at this point. And of course the condors. This is the best place in California now to see the condors, which have the largest wingspan of any bird, I think 10 feet.
They are majestic.
They're just majestic. And more of them are coming back. I think they just found a nest recently of a couple that are mating. And you can see them. You can see them without hiking. You can drive up to the Pinnacles, go into the visitor center, and just stand in the parking lot or have a picnic, and you'll probably see a condor at some point. And like you said, they're majestic. They really are.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
When I introduced you, I said that you liked exploring the back roads of California. Tell us what you found there.
Well, there's, as I said before, it's amazing what you can find. We tend to think of where we live, most of us in urban or suburban areas, and we think of freeways, we think of concrete, we think of shopping malls, strip malls, but it doesn't take much to really get out and see places that are like as they were maybe 100 years ago, maybe untouched at all. A few weeks ago, I was up in western Sonoma County near the Russian River, and I was with a friend, and we decided to take a road called the Coleman Valley Road. Now, this was a place I didn't know. It was on the map, but this is a beautiful little country road that goes through several valleys and through some forests, ends up north of Bodega on this beautiful stretch of beach. And we just happened upon a schoolhouse from 1879 in the middle of a field. And there it was with an old barn across the street, like something out of a picture book. Nobody was around. This was in the middle of California, about an hour and a half's drive from San Francisco. And there we were with cows milling around.
So there's actually lots of places for people that like hiking, biking, fishing, canoeing, and stuff like that. How about skiing?
Well, skiing, of course. We're in one of the best places in the world to ski. I was just up at Tahoe a few weeks ago with people from all over the world, and I had a friend from Colorado, and I said, "Well, how does this compare?" And she said, "You know what? This is better. In Colorado, we get up in the morning and it's 5 degrees, and it's 15 by the time we hit the slopes. We were skiing with windbreakers and T-shirts underneath because it was about 45 degrees and sunny, and it had snowed the week before, so the snow was great. And I said, but isn't the snow here kind of wet? They always talk about Colorado having the lighter snow. She said, I can't tell. To me, this is gorgeous. And we had a fantastic day at Heavenly with the view of Lake Tahoe below us, and there's just so many ski areas at Tahoe to choose from, and that big, beautiful lake in the middle of it all.
The only thing I've heard is that the Tahoe slopes are steeper, and the Colorado slopes are longer.
Are a little bit longer.
That
could be. That could be. I've heard that about Europe too, where they're longer ski runs.
Well, we've all heard the song "I Left My Heart in San Francisco." I even heard a parrot sing that once. Are there any other romantic getaways you'd like to tell us about?
Well, romantic getaways probably depend more on who you're with than the actual term, right?
Is absolutely
but,
true.
There's so many. There are a lot of romantic places in the Bay Area even. You don't have to go very far. I think I'll go back to the Gold Country because other than Amador County and Sutter Creek, if you're looking for the classic romantic sort of inn, these are the places to go. Maybe Nevada City, Sutter Creek. There are a lot of little gold rush towns that are full of little bed and breakfasts that date from the gold rush era from the 1800s. I'm thinking of the Holdbrook Hotel in Grass Valley, Sutter Creek Inn in Sutter Creek. These are places that haven't changed at all. They have little Victorian furniture, and there's a lot to see and do in those places, or there isn't. If you just want to relax and sit on the front porch and have a cocktail and look at the small town life, it's fine too.
Well, I hate to say that we've run out of time, but we have, and I know there probably are many more things to talk about and visit in Northern California, and I want to thank you for taking this time to visit us and help us plan our next close-to-home getaway. Maybe our audience will get to see some of these wonderful places. Well, that's it for today's show. I'm Beverly Siegel. See you next week on The Better Part.
Thank you for joining us. We hope that you have found today's program both informative and interesting. If you would like to suggest a topic or a guest for The Better Part, you can always reach us at the Cupertino Senior Center. The number there is 408-777-3150. You can learn more about us and order a copy of this program or one of the many programs that we've done by visiting our website. The website address is www.thebetterpart.com. The Better Part has many of its programs available through the Santa Clara County Library System. And The Better Part has selected programs also on YouTube. Thanks again for watching. See you next week.
And Laura, you can even start conversing with Bev, but Bev doesn't talk. Here we go. Here we go. Bev, Laura, talk to...
Just start anytime?
Yeah.
I was waiting. Too, but didn't have a chance to do that. So, well, maybe they can put it at the when they introduce me, or they put my name at the bottom.
Yeah.
They can, yeah. I've got a lot of information on my website.
Ernie, are you getting a reaction shot from one? Okay, gotcha. Okay, we're doing a reaction shot on Laura. In this case, Bev will be talking to you, Laura. Laura, you don't talk. Say when you're starting. Keep looking at Bev and reacting to what Bev is saying.
Should I start talking?
Sure.
When Phil edits the show, he'll put in the website address and all of that information.
Right.
So when you get to see the final show, you'll probably be very surprised at what he... So everything will look a lot different. From what it looked like in the studio.
Oh,
he's going to
great.
be using the photos that you sent him.
Oh, fabulous.
And so on.
Great.
Yeah. Bev,
Oh, me not talking.
yeah, Laura doesn't
Okay.
answer. She just reacts.
Okay.
Okay.
At what he's
Don't talk, Laura.
done with the stuff that you gave him. And he'll be giving the address of your website and anything else that you would like to...
Okay, that's very good. Now we're going to do the book. Tell us how you want it set up.
Do you want to use that stand, maybe?
Take your hand off the front.
Should I hold it up?
But
It's
you
going
have
to be
your fingers
difficult.
on the
Maybe
front of the
hold
book.
it at the top and tilt it so that don't cover the words. That's what they're saying.
No, we're on. What camera are we on? Okay. Hold it a minute. Hold it a minute.
There's a little stand where you
Camera,
don't have to put a
one
hand
is,
on it.
Just put your
is
finger
setting it up in such
no
a way
fingers
that
on
your
the front.
fingers will not obscure the text, and there'll be no
There.
glare on the cover.
there.
Camera one, come in a little closer.
Wait a minute. Wait a minute. I was off. I was. Wait a minute. I was off there. What? Oh, you want to focus too? Let me focus.
That's a wrap.